Hello again, ladies and gentlemen. This is Mr. Smith, and this is 2.11 oblique triangles, the sine law. If you don't remember what an oblique triangle is, it's just a triangle that is a non-right angle triangle. Sine law and cosine law, of course, work on right angle triangles. SOHCAHTOA does not work on non-right angle triangles. But you can use sine law and cosine law on both oblique and right angle triangles. However, if you have a right angle triangle, it's usually best to just go with a trig ratio, so SOHCAHTOA. All right, with that said, let's move on. Here I have the table from your page. I do have it zoomed in a little bit because it's the only way I can really get it to fit within my capture screen. So I do have the table. It's the first triangle, situation, and then the law that we use. Well, the situation is side, side, angle. If I reveal this, side, side, angle, that means sine law. So side, side, angle. The way that I remember when to use cosine law is if I have opposite a side and an angle. If I can get an opposite side and an angle, that means I'm going to use sine law. Just because it's a little bit easier and more straightforward. So the first line of the solution, you're going to set it up sine of 20, and it's opposite from 9. And when I say opposite, I mean it is the angle that is not touching. So there's our matching pairs there. And then you have sine of theta, because you're trying to find theta, over 7. Next example, we have angle, angle, side. And again, we have an opposite. So if I circle there, I can see I have an opposite there. That means I can use sine law, as long as I'm giving one more piece of information, which I am. I'm given an angle here. So angle, angle, side means you're going to use sine law. And then that means that it looks like this. Because sine 20 over 9, right? Because those are our opposites. And then sine 30 over x, because those are our other opposites there. So the other opposites are right here. Now you're going to see something very similar in the next one. We're given two angles, a side, but we're not given this angle here. Now, if you're not given that angle here, you can actually find your third angle, because in triangles, all the angles add up to 180 degrees. If all the angles add up to 180 degrees, that means that 180 minus 30 minus 95 is going to give you your last angle. So you can use sine law in this. The situation is called angle, side, angle. I can't remember all the cases that I use sine law. I basically check to see if I have an opposite. If I see an opposite right away, I know sine law. My brain's kind of backwards because I always think that you should check for cosine law first anyway. However, my brain doesn't let me. So moving forward, I forgot to do the subtraction. So 180 minus 30 minus 95 gives you 55 here. And then we have our opposite matching pair. And then we can use this opposite matching pair. And then we can sub them into sine law. So sine of 55 over 9, because that's the opposite side length, is equal to sine of 30 over x, because that's the opposite side lengths there. And then you can solve for x. In our next one, our next example down here, we have side, angle, side. This should be familiar at this point. If you have side, angle, side, you should know it's cosine law. We cannot use sine law because we do not have a matching pair anywhere for us to use. So if we can't do that, then cosine law is usually the answer. There is a case where you will not be able to find anything, but I digress. So your side, angle, side, your cosine law is just set up like this. The way I remember cosine law, just as a quick reminder, c squared is equal to a squared plus b squared minus 2ab cos of c. That's the formula I use to remember it, because I have a terrible memory, as you guys know, and then I change the letters around as I need. And the reason I use this is because c squared equals a squared plus b squared is just Pythagorean theorem, but I switched the sides. You know, Pythagorean theorem is just a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Well, now the sides are flipped, and then minus 2ab cos c. So now I'm not memorizing this whole formula. I just have to memorize 2ab cos c. I find it easier. If there's a trick that you guys know, make sure to post it on the forums or let me know. I'm always interested to see how students learn and what's easier for them to understand and digest. I find this the easiest for me. So in this case, x is c, because c is what I'm trying to figure out. Whether c is the angle or the side is going to be either the opposite. So I always have c as the angle or side I'm trying to determine in cosine law in the original formula. So that's why x squared's there. All right, and we're going to see this in the next example too, which, spoiler alert, we're given three sides and we're trying to figure out an angle. This is also our other case for cosine law. All right. So you sub in everything and look at that. C, like see how it's cos C? That's where theta is now. So we don't know what cos theta is. Wherever you're trying to figure out what something is, so if it's a side length or an angle, you would sub in or make sure that that's the letter C when you label your triangle. If you mix up A and B, it doesn't really matter because the math works out nicely. Yeah, I think that's pretty straightforward. And we're going to deal with cosine law in the next lesson. Okay, let's move on with sine law. Solve each equation above for the unknown. I do not have enough room to have the last page up. However, if you're curious, I'm going to leave this as an exercise for you guys to work through, and you can check your answers on Brightspace, as I'll leave those revealed for you. All right, example 3. This is all sine law. This is just an application of sine law. And in this case, Spider-Man is hanging upside down from the ceiling by 2 strands of webbing. Sorry. One strand is 46 inches long and forms a 60-degree angle with the ceiling. Okay. So it's that long. Makes that angle with the ceiling. Okay. What does the 64-inch strand make with the ceiling? What angle does it make with the ceiling? Okay. So we're given a triangle. This one's going to be 46 inches long, and this is a 60-degree angle here. And this is going to be 64 inches here. And Spider-Man's hanging out here. My lovely drawing of Spider-Man. We need to determine what theta is over here. Well, if we set up our sine law, we're going to have sine of 60 over 64 and sine of theta over 46. So I'm just going to start with this. Whoops. That's why I don't do that. Okay, so sine of 60 over 64 is equal to sine theta over 46. I would multiply 46 by sine 60, then divide by 64, then take the sine inverse. Now, here, the way it's typed out, you could do it this way. This is just cross multiplication, but in extra steps. So the way I would do this personally is I would have, in my second step, sine theta is equal to 46 sine 60 all over 64. And then I would take sine inverse of whatever this is on the right side. Now, I have typed out the 4 or the decimal answer to 4 decimal places, and then you take the sine inverse of it. What's better for you to do is with your calculator not to actually type out this decimal. This is just here for you to see. and check if you're working through this, which you should be. So if you type in 46 times sine 60 and then divide it by 64, you should get a decimal that's rounded to this. Then you take sine inverse of this decimal here. If you punched it into your calculator, you'll have a longer decimal, or probably like 8 or 9 digits here. And then you take the sine inverse of whatever your answer is. Most calculators let you do that, and that'll give you a more accurate answer. And the answer that I got, there we go, is 38.5 degrees. And because it is an angle, we round to the nearest degree. And if it's 38.5, it should be 39 degrees. Okay. If you're having problems with Sine Law, I would suggest reviewing your notes or asking myself. I don't believe I did a lesson on Sine Law. I think the first lesson I did on YouTube was, or the first video lesson I did was Cosine Law. So unfortunately, I don't think I have a video lesson on Sine Law. Hopefully, this was straightforward enough. If you guys do have questions, make sure to post them in the forum. This is practice 2.11 you should be doing after. Best of luck, and I'll hear from you guys soon.